Thank you for joining us today for the hireimmigrants.ca webinar, Winning HR Practices, a closer look at the 2012 Best Employers for New Canadians. This webinar is hosted by hireimmigrants.ca and the Allies team, which stands for Assisting Local Leaders with Immigrant Employment Strategies. Allies provides funding, technical assistance, and leverages corporate connections to assist local initiatives in breaking down the barriers that skilled immigrants face when seeking employment. Good afternoon to the East Coast and good morning to the West Coast. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the webinar. My name is Richard Urema. I'm the Managing Editor of the Canada's Top 100 Employers Project, as well as the Best Employers for New Canadians. I'll be moderating the webinar with my colleague, Christina Leung, who is the editor of the Best Employers for New Canadians, as well as the Canada's Top 100 Employers Project. Online with us today, we have representatives from two companies on the 2012 Best Employers for New Canadians list. From NTT Data Canada Inc., formerly King Inc., based in Halifax, we have Leanne Landry, the Senior Human Resources Business Partner for Canada. We also have Marsha White, an HR consultant. She will be answering questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar. From Telus Corporation in Vancouver, we have Helmut Hager, Talent Solutions Director, Executive Recruitment and Strategic Sourcing. And from Telus' office in Edmonton, we have Cindy Laporte, Human Resources Manager. Now, before we get started, just a few notes on the webinar technology. Everyone has been muted to minimize background noise and feedback. We do welcome any questions you have, and you can type them in the chat field found in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. There will also be a Q&A period, as I mentioned, at the end of the webinar. So if we don't answer your questions during the course of the presentations, we'll get to them at that time, or we will try. We will also ask you some questions through a polling feature to find out more about what you are doing in your own organizations. A recording of this presentation and the slides will be made available online in about 10 days for those unable to join us today, or if you would like to review or share part of the presentation at a later date. Christina.
Thanks, Richard. Over the course of the next hour, we'll be looking at trends in recruitment and integration practices from the Best Employers for New Canadians competition. And Leanne, Helmut, and Cindy will talk specifically about practices in their companies. Leanne will talk about NTT's language training program and how it has benefited both employees and the company, as well as how the company creates an inclusive environment that embraces and celebrates different cultures. Afterward, Helmut will talk about Telus' recruitment strategy and how the company recruits and supports skilled immigrants. Cindy will also talk about Telus' involvement in community mentoring programs. Hopefully these stories will inspire you and provide you with ideas on how you can better recruit and integrate skilled immigrants at your own organization. The last 20 minutes will be dedicated to your questions, and as Richard mentioned, if we don't cover your questions throughout the course of the webinar, we'll be sure to answer them during the Q&A period.
Thanks very much, Christina. And we are, of course, delighted to have Telus and NTT join us today, and delighted to have them on the 2012 list. Now, the Best Employers for New Canadians competition was launched in 2007 and is managed by us, the editors of Canada's Top 100 Employers, in partnership with Allies, which is a joint initiative of the Maytree Foundation and the J.W. McConnell Family Foundation, two exceptional foundations with long histories of strengthening Canadian communities. The designation recognizes the nation's very best employers for recent immigrants, and these employers offer interesting programs to assist new Canadians in making the transition to a new workplace, and more importantly, to a new life in Canada. This year, approximately 100 organizations were shortlisted for the Best Employers for New Canadians, which were drawn from the initial pool of applicants for our national competition. Impressively, the competition has grown steadily since its inception, with 20 organizations selected for the first year in 2008 to today's current list of 40. Of course, today, the current economic climate does make it difficult for job seekers across the board, but presents a particularly unique challenge for internationally educated professionals. As the labor market becomes increasingly competitive, applicants without Canadian credentials and experience are often overlooked, which is why it is increasingly important to highlight the very best practices in this field. And it truly is a thrill for us as writers to be able to document some of the programs and policies across the country.
So before we talk about how the best practices of the competition have changed over the year, let's do a quick survey of what you're doing in your own organization. So you'll see a poll pop up on your screen, and our poll question is, do you have any programs to help hire and integrate skilled immigrants into your workplace?
We'll give you a minute here, or just a few minutes here, or seconds. Christina, just as the writer of the program, of the variables there, which is the most common that you're seeing in the editorial?
I think by and large, mentoring is probably the most common practice that we see across the board, and whether this is an in-house mentoring program or partnerships with external community organizations, mentoring would be the most common practice.
Mm-hmm. It certainly does draw upon some of the strengths we see out there, the organizations in the various communities across Canada.
Yep, and just looking at some of your responses, it does seem that mentoring is 90% of you have said that you engage in some form of mentoring, followed by, it seems, recruitment and hiring, as well as credential recognition and internships, which is great.
Yeah, interesting, the 100% on the mentoring. Thanks very much, everyone. This polling does highlight some of the early focus that we see of organizations, and, some of the early steps that organizations take to create a welcoming and respectful atmosphere for new Canadians is really through celebrations of their own cultural diversity that they're seeing within their organizations. When we see this sort of move to recognize, it's just in the form of social events and awareness events about religious holidays and various cultural events. And these are the types of early steps that we see. They're really the foundation where help create the literacy for organizations to move forward. And today the focus, though, we're seeing is geared towards the practical situation of new Canadians seeking employment. And organizations are building upon their past experiences and have an increased understanding and awareness of the systematic barriers that are faced by newcomers, in particular that requirement of Canadian experience, education, or credentials. We see employers are now working to address these issues in substantial material ways through bridging programs, financial support to cover the cost of upgrading courses, and opportunities for transitional employment, etc.
And Richard, just on that note, we've noticed that employers have increased their efforts this year with respect to support for foreign credential recognition. A great example of this is a partnership Manitoba Hydro developed with the University of Manitoba, specifically the Internationally Educated Engineers Qualifications Program, which helps internationally educated engineers become accredited in Manitoba. Manitoba Hydro provides funding for this program and has also hired students directly upon program completion. And this type of partnership is useful as it presents internationally educated professionals with a clear career pipeline from upgrading foreign credentials to actual employment. Internship and work placement opportunities are also key ways through which newcomers can access employment. For an example, Loblaw has partnered with the University of Toronto to offer international pharmacy students with internship opportunities for a period of 4 months while they complete their courses. Once students become fully licensed, they are generally offered a permanent position within the company. The law firm Fraser Milner Casgrain also manages a similar initiative, also in partnership with the University of Toronto. The firm sponsors the university's internationally trained lawyers program and provides students with a 3-month internship after they have completed the in-class portion of the program. Some of the other employers that are profiled in the competition have hired new Canadians with foreign credentials at junior level positions while they pursue academic or professional equivalencies. Now I'd just like to hand it over to Leanne. Leanne, would you be able to tell us a bit more about the initiatives you have in place at NTT Data?
Yes, thank you. Today I'll talk about our ESL program, the English Second Language program, a little bit about a recent wage subsidy program that we've been able to take advantage of, and our cultural awareness program. As we've seen in the job market, we have many requirements for skilled labor, and we have found that shortage over the last 10 years, and it's becoming more common these days to have a recruitment focus on hiring immigrants. In doing that, we have found that the English second language skills can suffer somewhat when they're placed into a technical role. So we work in partnership with a local program that is called ISIS. ISIS stands for Immigrants Settlement and Immigration Services. This is a Nova Scotian group that's federally and provincially funded. They coordinate an ESL program. They actually come on site to help us facilitate that with our employees. So the way that it works is the employee would nominate themselves, or perhaps the manager would nominate the employee after a discussion of their language skills and the gaps within that skill base. So they learn verbal, written, and comprehension, and they also get an understanding of the common expressions, slang, if you will. So a real integration into the Canadian language. They're often very technically spoken people, so that part's not difficult for them, but we do require that they speak with clients and work in teams and have the ability to decipher the technical pieces to their management team. So it's very important that their skills are up to speed. Before starting the program, the ISIS group does a assessment with them to gauge what their skill level is. From that assessment, it's determined whether they need, if they could be successful in it, like a grouped classroom setting, or if they need more specific training in one area where the instructor would work with them one-on-one. So the program is really tailored to the individual, and it's tailored to what their gaps are and where we need to get them. So the manager also works with that ESL instructor to decipher the job and help that person, help that instructor understand what the outcome needs to be. It's a very, very tight partnership there. We do allow this to happen during work hours, which has been a real benefit, rather than a person going off-site, so that's the transportation time to the English class and back again. The instructor comes here twice a week, for instance, in those group sessions, and the same in the one-on-one session. Spends about an hour and a half per session, and the semesters run like a regular school semester. It's taken very seriously. These go for 12 to 13 weeks. Now, I like to say that we do have close relationships, close partnerships with our local providers, but I will mention to you on the call that there is also an ESL program provided through the Federal Temporary Foreign Workers Program, and you could find that online. In terms of the benefits of the ESL program, it's really immense for us. It's multifaceted. As I mentioned, we need our employees to be up to speed to be able to talk to clients, managers, and work within teams. And those really do encompass our core competencies. So if you think about employees' performance management on an annual or biannual basis, these are trigger points that we check in on. So the employee, whether they're English second language or not, do have an expectation placed on them to be meeting the expectations in our areas of client satisfaction, teamwork, and communication. So they do really feel empowered to be successful in their roles. For us, as the employer, in terms of the return on investment, it definitely improves their productivity. You don't have that lag time of deciphering communications. We've seen retention resulting from many of our immigrants at a higher level than the Canadian employee group. It also brings a diverse and cultural awareness to groups that may not have previously had that, as well as being a global organization. It certainly benefits us in understanding various cultures around the world. We have been in the program for over 10 years. Right now we have 6 participants, and we actually expect our caseload to double in 2012 from 2011. And you can really correlate that with the number of work permits and LMOs that we have going on at the time. So people are taking advantage of this program, and we do run 3 semesters.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little tidbit. This is a provincial program, so it may differ from province to province, but we are lucky enough to have been provided with a program that gives us a wage subsidy for employing new immigrants. So that helps us in terms of, sometimes convincing those hiring managers that, there's a hidden gem here, and it may be that they don't have the North American experience. The work placement helps to put them into roles and offer an incentive to do that. So up to 50% for the first 6 weeks. We've used it for roles such as software testers and software developers, and even a couple junior manager roles. And what I would say in terms of that is we've had 100% retention in those from people taking advantage of those programs. Excuse me for a minute. So our cultural awareness program, very successful program. It's in terms of what happens here, we have what's called a cultural awareness program, and employees are encouraged to support education on their cultural events and celebrations and so on. So what we do is we advertise when there's a significant date coming up, and we ask for volunteers to take on a celebration. So the most common celebrations for our group are the Diwali event in the fall, usually November, and the Chinese New Year later in January. And these are highly attended. The employees that take on the event do all the planning, and we support them with anything they need in terms of facilities or budgeting or communications. In terms of what that does for the employee base, it really helps to integrate those employees into a work environment that's comfortable for them, and helps them in the knowledge that now their coworkers know a little bit more about what their background is, and we really see a lot of people asking questions. We had kind of a dim sum, if you will, for the Chinese New Year, and there was a lot of vocabulary going back and forth between the people that were coordinating the event and the people that were attending. We do find that food sometimes will help the attendance, but we've certainly had very strong attendance at any of the cultural awareness events that we've put on. Next slide. So if I were making suggestions, tips for other employers, you've really got to get out into your local community and understand what programs are offered, whether that's through a provincial site or municipality or what have you. If not for our partnership through ISIS, which again is local and specific to the Halifax and Nova Scotia area, we would not be able to provide the quantity of English second language lessons that we do, nor would we be able to take advantage of a wage subsidy. We may not even have known about that. When employees are coming to a new country, it's not only about them, it's really about their family, as many of you would know. So it's really kind of what you're doing behind the scenes. We developed a newcomer package that gives them a variety of links to things like doctors accepting patients, to the welcome guide for the area, And that welcome guide really does have an immigrant focus. So we found that that goes home to the spouse and the family, and it's often we'll get questions and can further help them. But without those tools, there's not an effective avenue to generate those questions that they need assistance with. One neat tip, and many of you may be doing this, we take advantage of our what we call our interfaith calendar. So the cross-cultural holidays, well, we may be celebrating Easter coming up, others may not be. And in an organization where you have a global presence, you may also have 24/7 operations. If not, you may be supporting American, you may be having a Canadian holiday while the Americans don't have that time off, what have you. Those are examples where you could effectively have coverage over those typical North American holidays. I strongly encourage anybody integrating any quantity of immigrants into their organization at this point to look at the cultural awareness program. It's something that's fairly easily implemented. Sit together with the group, let them know that they can drive this. And I think you'll see that that is something that they do want to do. New Canadians do want to educate their peers, their coworkers, with respect to what challenges they have faced and all the interesting and celebratory facts about their background. And lastly, you've really got to ensure that during your onboarding process, you're educating your new hires, your new Canadians, about what programs are in the community for them and what you can do within the work environment. So I encourage you to have at least a slide in your onboarding presentation, in your new hire paperwork, something that shows inclusion for that group, whether it's a one-liner in your policy handbook, but you do need to be out in front of that and educating new hires, new Canadians, as they come into your company. I'll pause there.
Yeah, excellent, Leanne. Thanks very much. You certainly need to highlight the point of the efforts to create greater cultural awareness, laying that foundation of creating greater understanding and awareness amongst your people. One thing that struck me as you're speaking, you mentioned the date 2006 and the history, and I think for organizations listening that are not doing anything at this point, I see by our poll we have 37% of employers don't have programs. I think that 2006 number highlights the fact that you can come very far very quickly, and there's no excuse not to do anything. And for a lot of our editorial that we develop, this has always been something that we note is the recency of many of the programs and policies. So getting going and moving in this direction just is a matter of taking some of those first steps. So thanks very much. You're definitely doing a lot of great work and all very helpful. I'm now going to call upon Helmut from Telus Corporation. And Helmut, maybe you can highlight a little bit about what Telus is doing to recruit and integrate skilled immigrants. Helmut.
Sure. Thank you, Richard. I'm actually an immigrant myself. I'm originally from Vienna in Austria. And before moving to Vancouver, I lived and worked in Hong Kong for a little while. So I certainly understand what it means to move to a different country and to look for employment. I want to provide a couple of highlights about our overarching recruitment strategy. As part of our culture, and it's also part of our top corporate priority, we focus on candidate and also client experience. Ultimately, we want to make Telus as the company of choice, and by raising kind of the bar, that helps overall retention rate as well. The recruitment team focuses on finding bright, motivated individuals, and we're less concerned about geographic boundaries. So for scarce skill set, we actually conduct global recruitment as well, and we do recognize and value foreign education and experience. Quite often, whether it's IT, telecom, engineering, or sometimes even for executive searches, we go international or look for the new immigrants. And one of the reasons, I guess, we value immigrants is they bring diversity, they bring a new perspective, and ultimately augment skill set and experience of existing teams. Now, in order to find those top talents, we not only rely on applicants, but we also conduct proactive searches and, like so many other companies, utilize social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, web optimization, and so on. To maybe give one concrete example of a more recent hire where we're looking for very unique skill set. It was kind of reversed logistics within the telco space, and we were able to find that particular VP from the UK, and kind of were able to bring him to Telus. In order to be equipped when dealing with a diversified candidate pool and immigrants, recruiters and hiring managers receive a variety of training, and some of these training includes also intercultural communications and diversity courses. A couple of other examples I want to outline of some of the activities we have done more recently around dealing with immigrants and kind of that diversified pool is I was actually part of a roundtable with Citizenship and Immigration Canada. It was hosted in Vancouver by the Deputy Minister Neil Yates. It was a great event. We were able to learn about some of the new upcoming changes, but it also provided us, various corporate companies, the opportunity to share some of the pain points, and also provided some concrete recommendations. So having that ongoing dialogue certainly was very helpful. Another example, which is actually we're in the midst of discussing with a vendor to evaluate a new pilot program, which is a landed resource program, that basically would be a multi-year work permit for skilled technical individuals, mostly from Eastern Europe. So that's something that we're just, again, in the middle of evaluating, but certainly quite excited about finding out some of the guidelines for that. Now, what are we doing specifically, and what do we offer for new immigrants? And just wanted to share a couple of numbers, and the numbers I have are for 2009, but what I've seen kind of over the years is actually kind of an increase in trend. So Telus has sponsored employment for about 36 individuals for permanent residency, and we also supported 92 team members on work permits. And again, these numbers have increased over the last few years. In addition to that, Telus offers all new team members an orientation session. So this session is designed to ensure new team members have a positive introduction to our organization, and it also helps to support the integration into Telus and the new role. In addition, we also offer a buddy system. So all new team members are assigned an induction buddy who helps them to ease the transition of new employment into the teams. So buddies support the new team members by giving them a tour of the office, introducing them to the team, and more or less be their go-to person for questions. Some of the other, I guess, programs that Telus offers specifically to newcomers and also to the managers to better understand and also help to bridge the intercultural aspect of the Canadian workplace. So some of these programs include, for example, an employee and family assistance program, which offers information on different cultures, career, and change counseling. We also offer an online mentoring program, so you can connect with protégés, peer-to-peer, or do group mentoring. And these options help the team member to develop skills specifically for the Canadian workplace. In addition to focusing on the new immigrants, we always strive kind of to look at the diversity. And as part of that, kind of the diversity, we kind of have a broader offering and broader spectrum as well. So we also offer and focus on visible minority, people with disabilities, Aboriginals, and also individuals from the LGBT community. And some of the specific support groups, we have quite a list of those, but maybe just to mention two. We have a diversity and inclusive council that provides a lot of support. And we also have, which is a little bit more recent, probably a few years ago, developed an employee resource group for the LGBT community. And maybe just to mention, if listeners are not familiar what the LGBT stands for, it is the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. So again, Telus is very diverse and very open, I guess, to embrace diversity. So these were kind of the highlights I wanted to share. Just want to pause and see if there are any questions. If not, I will hand it over to my colleague, Cindy Laporte.
Thanks, Helmut. So I wanted to share with you some things that we're doing in the community and specifically some work that we're doing with new Canadians. About 4 years ago, Telus was asked to participate in a new board that was being established in Edmonton. It was going to be an industry-led board, and that board was the Edmonton Region Immigrant Employment Council, or ERIC for short, as it's become known. And so this was an opportunity for Telus to get involved in this, and at the time I was working in the recruitment area, and I had been asked to support this board. So personally, it's been a great opportunity for me to get involved on a board to give back to the community and to grow my knowledge of the diversity and challenges that new Canadians are facing in our communities. And last year I actually took over as the chair of the board of ERIC, so my learnings continue to grow. As ERIC was developing, one of the premier events, or we wanted to launch a career mentorship program, and as such we needed to get some mentors for the many mentees that we were matching. And I asked a colleague of mine in the engineering department if she was interested in becoming one of the first mentors in our program, and she agreed to this. So what did she sign up for? She had signed up for a 4-month program that consisted of 24 hours of work with a mentee that she would be matched with, and this was about an hour and a half a week that they met, and the curriculum that was created by ERIC is very much supports the mentee and the mentor through this program. In the first month, the mentee and the mentor, it's really about getting to know each other, reviewing resumes, helping with the job search and interview practices, and a big part of that was providing support with mock interviews. And not only was the mentor providing mock interviews, the mentor finds people in their department or other people they may know so that the mentee gets a variety of opportunities to do those mock interviews. In the second month, they focus on employer contacts and networking. As we know, there's not so much just go to the website and find a job posting. It's really about understanding how the various work groups network and look for opportunities in their field. Additionally, they spend some time on telephone etiquette and telephone interviews, which will be a first step to getting in the door and getting to that face-to-face interview. Additionally, in the third month, they're going to continue to work on their interviewing and really networking, so that mentor takes the time. Maybe it's bringing them in and allowing them to sit in on some team meetings or introducing them to some professional groups that are available in their communities. And finally, we look to wrap up the program by, again, looking at workplace cultures and bringing closure to the formal relationship, and that includes some action planning for the mentee once that formal mentorship relationship ends. And what we've learned in the past few years with the mentorship program is the formal part may not end, or ends, but the actual personal relationship and support continues on for months and years to come. We host Telus, along with Eric, has been hosting these celebration events post every mentorship program, and I always am in awe of the mentees and the mentors when they get up in front of everybody and tell us about their experience and what they learned. Each one of the mentees come away with such a sense of confidence in their abilities to be successful in their job search. It's just overwhelming for them and everybody else as well. And I think the mentors also learn a tremendous amount about themselves. And you can see that in the quote here, that mentoring helped me to understand my own multicultural staff team and appreciate the simple things that we take for granted. My modest investment of time has returned professional rewards for my mentee, myself, and my company. And I think Annette was so passionate about her relationship and her ability to give back to her mentee. So when we look at the benefits to Telus, we've had the opportunity to have 5 mentors sign up for the program in Edmonton. We've had 3 successful matches, and to date, 2 of those 3 have been successful in being hired and work in their field, and 1 was with Telus, so it was a win-win for Telus as well. We also have 1 Telus team member who's supporting another ERIC program, which is the SpeedMet career networking event that they host throughout the year. And this is a way for mentors to perhaps get a feel for what it's like to mentor a new internationally trained professionals and perhaps get involved in the program, in the 4-month program in the future. It really provides an opportunity for team members to give back to the communities, and I think even more so to gain some leadership experience. We are very keen to provide leadership opportunities and personal development and growth opportunities, and sometimes many people want to have opportunities to lead teams but haven't had the opportunity to coach people or lead people. Mentorship is a great opportunity for them to take on a mentee and gain some of that experience through volunteering in the communities. And as Helmut has discussed, it also supports the diversity and awareness programs that we have within Telus. One of the new employee resource groups that was launched in the fall of 2011 is the New Canadians Employee Resource Group at Telus. And this is one of the fastest growing employee resource groups that we have right now, and it's gaining a lot of momentum. And one of the first initiatives that the employee resource group is going to be taking on is a national mentorship partnership with allies. And in particular, we are looking to launch a pilot within Edmonton and the ERIC team, and also partnering in Toronto with TRIAC, which is the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council. And what we'll be looking to do is to gain the support of more Telus team members that are willing to participate in these mentorship programs in the 2 communities. We're really excited to be able to bring awareness of the programs to both Edmonton and Toronto. And our goal in the future is going to be to partner with other immigrant employment councils from across Canada to expand this program to all of our Telus employees in the future. So a few tips that Helmut and I would like to leave you with today are the opportunity to train all of your employees on diversity and inclusiveness. It really brings awareness to the cultural differences that you have in your workplace. And it also supports, I think, the retention and integration of new team members and existing team members that you might have. Be an advisor to your hiring managers. So if we have any recruiters on the call today, be that person that can understand the business and understand your hiring managers, and looking at the resumes that you're providing and understanding the skills that those people may be bringing, and helping support perhaps the people that have that skill, and helping managers to understand the importance of diversity when recruiting. Helmut talked about our buddy system, and I think it really is important to have a go-to person and allow them somebody that they can feel, I think, safe to talk to, help with the integration within the company, also supports the retention of those team members within the company. I've talked about our New Canadian Resource Group, and we're just starting to kick this off, but I think the value that we're seeing already is the amount of interest we have nationally from existing New Canadians in our company that are willing to help other people within Telus, and as well how can we communicate that to the community and continue to support external new Canadians with their job searches. And from a personal perspective, I think there's an opportunity for all of us to look for opportunities to mentor in our communities and give back, and maybe whether it's an internal mentorship program that you perhaps have in place or something externally that you can get involved in. It's just a really fulfilling feeling to know that you're giving back and supporting someone to be successful in their field of work. Christina, on behalf of Helmut and myself, thanks for allowing us to be part of this webinar today.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing, Cindy and Helmut. You've given us some great advice, and I'm sure many of the employers listening today can learn from your examples. If you're an organization that is interested or just starting to tackle this subject, we definitely encourage you to start with a smaller focus and develop additional programs once you have a bit more experience in the field. A good place to start is reviewing our reasons for selection, which explain why each employer was chosen for the Best Employers for New Canadians competition. And this is available through the competition homepage, canadastop100.com/immigrants. It's a great way to see what other organizations in your industry and region are doing in order to help determine what types of initiatives would be a good fit for you. As well, I think it's good to reach out to local educational institutions and learn about bridging programs that may exist, and explore ways in which you can partner with them to ensure that newcomers have a specific career pipeline to follow. Richard?
Yeah, thanks very much, Christina, and thanks again to our speakers. It's now actually time to just sort of move into our Q&A period. So we're going to, you'll see your screen changing a little bit. I'd just like to quickly start off just with a quick question to both employers. Just taking you back to your very first steps, can you speak just very quickly to the first sort of the impetus for moving down this path? Was it a top-down from senior executive? Was it coming from the bottom up? I'll direct it right back to Helmut and Cindy first.
Sure. I actually think it's a combination of both. I mean, our executives obviously outline kind of the overall framework, but a lot of the ask kind of came from the bottom up as well. And I noticed there were a couple of questions in regard to the buddy system, so maybe to speak a little bit more about this. While the orientation program outlines a lot of the foundational experience and necessary information for a new team member, the buddy system is somebody who is interested in helping out somebody who's joining the team, and ideally somebody who is in the same team, and then again is kind of the go-to person for a lot of the questions. So it is not necessarily a very formal program. It is more going to somebody that is kind of designated and be able to address them with any kind of questions that are coming up. I hope that provides a little bit more clarity, but if there's some specific questions, I can certainly address those as well.
Sure. I'm not sure. Leanne, are you still with us, or are we now with Marcia from NTT?
Marcia's on hand.
Oh, hey, Marcia. Any thoughts on the early impetus of your programs and your movement in this direction of creating a much more inclusive workplace? Is it top-down, or is it coming from the bottom up?
It can be a little bit of both in that, we have staff looking for assistance because they're self-nominating to, assist in any of these programs. But then, these are people that we have faith in and we've brought into the company. So we take an ownership in supporting your staff and giving them the tools, because it can be, recognized as any type of training to develop skill sets. So it's actually can be looked at and supported on both angles.
Very good. A specific question directed to Telus, to Helmut and Cindy. Does Telus use immigration professionals, or their team members have to hire them on their own?
We actually do. So we have an immigration relocation manager that facilitates the process. We work with an immigration lawyer, and we also work with a third party that facilitates the actual move. So that's all part of the offering that that Telus offers.
Okay. Thanks very much. Christina might have a question.
I think some of the questions are with regards to Telus's buddy program and the selection process for buddies. maybe Helmut, Cindy, one of you could provide some more details on that.
So it is basically individuals who are interested in becoming a buddy can kind of volunteer and receive some further training. We have a variety of online courses, again, that talk about the diversity and intercultural differences. So it is basically stemmed from the interest of individual team members to help the newcomers.
Okay, thanks very much, Helmut. It's a question directed to Cindy at NTT, Marcia at NTT. How do you get, and this kind of goes back to what I started with, how do you get senior management to buy in to provide ESL training on site? What is the, for other employers thinking to bring in these types of programs, what is the best pitch to make to your senior managers?
Well, it's really just in the best interest of both sides, because you are closing a gap that may or may not be causing problems, but you know, you just want to have the support in place, and it also creates a sense of inclusion for staff to show the support that's there by being able to partner with you know, a service in the community like we are fortunate enough to have with ISIS. They are so accommodating to our needs that, you know, just bringing the services on site, you know, for employees to be able to conduct on the work site, and being very specific in helping develop the skills necessary for them to do their job and beyond. So we're fortunate to have these things in place, so it kind of sells itself in a sense. But you know, having any of these programs put together can be a really simple task when it comes to the Cultural Awareness Committee and things like that. So I guess when you can show the results of the effort, somewhat of a little bit of effort, and you get some great results coming from many angles, that's definitely a good sell for anybody.
Sure.
We have a specific question for Helmut. How does Telus overcome the perceived need for Canadian experience or training? Maybe you can share how you recognize foreign education and experience, and what the process internally is.
Sure. So as mentioned, I guess most frequently the kind of individuals we're looking for also in regards to internationally, you know, immigrants is for either IT or telecom or engineering. And rather than just focusing what kind of degree they have, we focus on what have they achieved, what kind of proven track record they have. And if we use a concrete example, software development, if an individual has been successful kind of, you know, developing in a large enterprise environment, was able to develop multi-tier applications, that is what we're looking for, rather than focusing on, you know, what specific degree or from what kind of university they have. In some areas, we conduct little technical tests, or part of the interview is a technical component where the hiring manager would drill down, and if the hiring manager is satisfied that the individual has kind of that expertise, that's basically the driving factor, rather than just looking at the educational background.
Excellent. I'd like to ask the question. I'm looking at our poll here, and we do have 63% of employers indicating that they already are developing programs in this area. I would like each of you to speak to one issue or one area you would like to move your organization, a program or something you're not doing, and what you're planning to do. What's your next step? First, NTT, what do you see as your next most important step in moving in this direction?
What other types of things we could be doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a really good question. We try to educate the worker, because we do realize that if the worker's family is or spouse is having issues integrating into the area, that, you know, is a struggle on the family as a unit. So, you know, officially in terms of employment, we support the worker, but we try to provide as much information and things as we can to the employee to extend to their family, so we can help the integration not only into the workplace, but going beyond the workplace, you want to be able to extend some information to the the new area they're living in, or just the general surroundings that they're trying to adapt to. So that's specific cases, but that's something we're trying to move a little bit, taking the extra step, I guess is the best thing to say.
Yeah, no, that's what we're kind of after. Any thoughts from Telus?
Sure, it's Cindy. I think we've got a lot of momentum with our diversity and inclusiveness councils and the various employer resource groups, and understanding how we can continue to support our internal team members with their growth and personal development and career advancement within Telus. We have so many opportunities, and we really promote career advancement. And I think we just need to learn how to continue for managers to support the different cultural experiences, I guess, that they may have within their teams, and are they aware of those differences and continue to grow their own awareness of diversity within Telus, and the opportunities to reach out to people and help them. So it's mentorship internally that we can continue to grow on and to build on within Telus.
And just building on that, Cindy, we have a question. I think you touched on it a little bit during your presentation, but from the mentor's perspective, what do you find that mentors learn from their mentees?
Great question. One of the common themes that I hear is, it's understanding your own maybe your own biases, understanding the roadblocks and the barriers that new Canadians have when they're entering a workplace or when they are looking for work, things that we take for granted just around networking, and how with just a little bit of support they can be successful as well. And just being careful, I think, also about some of the ways that we communicate or some acronyms that we use or slangs that they perhaps take those totally literally sometimes, and we have to be careful about how we're communicating with people and understanding that they haven't grown up with those same types of conversations that perhaps we have. So some really simple things sometimes can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to ask another question, sort of abroad, and this is something I receive as sort of in my role as managing editor for many of these projects, organizations indicating cost and the affordability of doing things and implementing programs. And we've always tried to make the point that these are nothing that we're writing about should be designed to break the bank or put an organization in a difficult situation. I would ask each of you to speak. How do you justify the costs, or are there costs? What would you say to organizations to make the pitch to say it's not costly? Actually, the return on any investment here is very high. Can you speak to it? Is there budgets, or do you have any kind of measurement of the actual financial cost that any of these programs and initiatives cost? And I'll put the question first to Telus. Helmut or Cindy, sorry.
Good question. I mean, as always, there's always limited budgets available for implementing some of this, and I think it's about being creative and innovative in how you implement things, being able to, like, for instance, the ERIC mentorship, these are all volunteer opportunities, but the return on the investment is the growth in for our own personal development and for the company, and not only from a growth of our customer base, but also internally for our team members. Helmut, do you want to add something from from recruitment side of that? Or?
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it does come down to the ROI, and we certainly realize if we provide, further training and mentorship program to individuals, it helps individuals, and subsequently it helps the organization. Maybe just to tie this in with some other questions that I've seen, in regards to the actual training programs, we have an internal training group, and this team actually got some awards and recognition as well. So any kind of training material is either developed internally, or we leverage external consultant and support as well. So it is kind of a joint approach, but we have a good-sized internal training team that rolls out or selects various vendors to provide training.
Marcia from NTT, do you want to take on the question just in cost and how it's justified or explained or discussed internally?
Certainly. There definitely is a bit of budget there, and I'll speak to that second, because the most important piece is, to me, the pieces that have very little to no cost. If you're fortunate enough to be able to create a SharePoint site, that's great, but it can be something as simple as a bulletin board in the lunchroom or in a common area where you can post local cultural events, you can post resources, anything that we've mentioned that we've done on our site, could be printed off on paper and simply posted somewhere. There's a lot of value to that. As we become aware of events in the community, we send out emails to all staff, just making them aware of things that they can participate in and their family can participate in. And in terms of the budget, you don't always have a plan in place for that. So, the year you decide to start, you may not have anything. So, you can plan accordingly for the following years. But to start, you can do something as simple as host an event in the lunchroom by posting pictures and speeches or any type of information you can collect on the event, and just have people who celebrate and share this culture be there to answer questions. We do something simple with the Chinese New Year and just have some chopsticks and have people practice with marbles just to get that experience. So there really doesn't have to be a lot of cost involved, but something as large as Diwali, where we have 200 staff, that has grown year over year. So we do have to put a little bit of money aside for that, but doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Yeah, well, that's a point we tried to make in much of our editorial, and you both demonstrated quite well. Christina?
Yeah, just picking up on, we were talking about the cultural awareness programs at both of your organizations. Just curious, who's responsible for developing the programs and talking about how to help employees bridge their intercultural experiences? Maybe, Marcia, if you want to take your question first.
Yeah, I actually am fortunate enough to help manage and coordinate the program, but as Leanne had mentioned, a lot of it is driven by the employees. So if they have, because we have over 30 different citizenships in our company just in Halifax, so we encourage the employees who are essentially the subject matter experts on these celebrations and events and specific knowledge to come forward and help coordinate things. So it can be in the hands of both. I like to manage the emails and sharing of information, but certainly we engage the employees because they are the experts in most areas.
Thanks very much. We're down to our last question, and I just want to ask each of you if there are one simple tip you could leave the listeners. Now remember, we have those that are heading down this path and those that have not yet started. I'll throw it to Telus. If there's one thing you want to part with for the listeners today, what's the one little bit of wisdom you'd like to share?
I think the one thing I would mention, I guess, from a job seeker point of view is to utilize and leverage social media and to network. It is something that has kind of gained tremendous momentum, for example, such as LinkedIn. A lot of organizations are leveraging that, and that's a great way, again, to not only be made visible to employers, but there are quite a few different user groups where you can discuss various topics and get extra tidbits as well.
Excellent point. Cindy, did you want to elaborate or share any more? There's two of you there.
Thanks. I think the cultural awareness and diversity and inclusiveness within the companies is something that can just keep growing and has momentum to build awareness and support for existing team members as well as anybody new you might be hiring. So I think there's a lot of value in bringing awareness to those types of groups within your company.
Thanks, Cindy. Marcia, any one little last bit of wisdom you'd like to share?
I definitely agree with both the statements just made, and to me it's the little things that have low to no cost that make the biggest difference, so definitely take advantage of those.
Great. So as we wrap up today, I'd really just like to thank Leanne, Marcia, Helmut, and Cindy for joining us and sharing some of their very best practices. I'd also like to have Christina join me in thanking all of you for listening online from coast to coast. And I'd like to ask you to please complete the short survey that has just popped up on your screen. And the URL to the survey is also in the text box at the bottom of the webinar screen. Additional tools and resources such as videos showcasing inclusive talent, management practices for integrating skilled immigrants into the workplace can be found online at hireimmigrants.ca, where you can also sign up for HR e-tips and stay informed about future webinar topics. Until next time, enjoy the remainder of your day. Thank you.